A lot of time we spend on this podcast is discussing the quarterback position, its importance to the Giants and importance to NFL, how we're going to win football games, and how to evaluate the position. We get a ton of questions. Just yesterday, we were asked to provide the 4 or 5 traits we think are most important to the position. But I want to take it back to the beginning with Josh Allen, because I would say Josh Allen is probably the quarterback prospect I most got wrong in my evaluation since I started doing this by far. And I think in a lot of ways, Josh Allen changed the way I evaluate the position from a
100%.
projection standpoint.
Yes.
So I want to ask you about how did he go from the quarterback that I watched and a lot of us watched at Wyoming, somebody who was honestly at times missing passes to the flat from purely clean pockets,
Yes. Yes.
right? Like,
Yeah.
not this elite evaluator, not somebody who you would see manipulate a defense with his eyes to the left, to the play side, and then throw a backside dig, like you said, is like a common stance with
Right.
Gabe Davis. Like, how did it change so much? And what are some of the signs maybe that you saw throughout that process that fans like us can look to, with whether that be with Daniel Jones's continued development, or if the Giants go in a different direction at quarterback, something they can signs maybe that they can, see and feel and understand that can lead to, okay, this is a sign that says this quarterback is developing in the way we want him to.
It's a great conversation because my first Senior Bowl was Josh Allen's year down there, and I remember sitting right behind the Bills brass in the end zone when they were warming up, trying to throw backline passes, kind of high point passes in the back of the end zone, and the Bills brass were sitting in like the third, fourth, and fifth rows, and I'm right there behind them, just seeing, watching what they're watching. I remember Josh consistently missing, almost hitting the coaches and staff of the Bills in the fourth row. And, to see him struggle on things like that and accuracy against air to what he's doing now, as you said, man, Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, that entire class changed how I evaluate quarterbacks and really altogether, because it's a different game now. And, I always say with Josh, he was a traitsy player, right? He was a traitsy kid, and traits give you options. And that's what you need in the NFL, because nowadays you're not going to have a good offensive line for many games in a row consistently. There are going to be injuries. You're going to have to, escape the pocket and make plays outside of script. So you got to have that athleticism and be able to avoid and manipulate the pockets, or again, get outside of the pocket. And with him, he was always an intelligent guy. I think a very smart guy. And again, once Daboll kind of tapped into how he learned, that's when you saw that him kind of, take his game to another level. I don't know if you guys saw that story a few years back where, when they picked up Josh Allen, Josh is a visual learner. So they changed their entire practice plan when it came to install during the week, early in the week. And they would make it a walkthrough where they go into the weight room, and the weight room has like a balcony. And so everyone would go on the offense would go into that install session, and Josh would walk through all of the protections, all of the plays they're going to call, the game script and all that, rather than sitting in a meeting room for an hour and a half and looking at a piece of paper or whiteboard. So Daboll's in tune to a lot of these things. He's got a lot of experience with a lot of different quarterbacks. And I personally still believe he's a better play caller, play designer, manager of quarterbacks than Dorsey is right now. But Dorsey is early on. He doesn't have the reps and game experience that Daboll does, especially big games in over the years. And then again, the traits of having that arm strength. You're not always going to be in rhythm. Most offenses nowadays, they're not like the Kyle Shanahan West Coast hit the top of your drop type throws. Josh Allen, they don't ask him to do that. A lot of the routes that they run are leverage routes. They're not, hey, get to this depth, or on the 7th step, run this break. It's not that. It's actually, hey, when you get to this area where the cornerback is now squatting, that's when you run your corner. It's not, hey, get the 7 yards, run your corner.
Right.
And you get past the corner, then run it. So they tailored the offense to Josh Allen and used all those traits that he's good at and maximize those things. And so he's not a guy that's still, even to this point, where he's not always going to be on top of his game when it comes to processing. But that's where arm strength does matter. And you talked about how that, has changed your view of evaluating quarterbacks. Arm strength, Nick, when we went through the scouting academy, we were always told like arm strength is like one of the lower tiers when it comes to priorities of a quarterback, because how can you overcome the lack of arm strength? Processing. I can see it and anticipate it. I don't need a big arm, and not to be rude, but like the Kirk Cousins of the world, right? And so you don't need that arm strength. Nowadays, maybe you don't need to be a top tier processor, But if you have the athleticism to extend the play just a little bit, and the arm strength now becomes a factor on, you may be late to that process and processing this coverage, but you have the arm to make up for it late. That's why he's changed the game and how we evaluate things, because a lot of those traits that, back then when he was coming out, were the traditional evaluators really didn't put a lot of stock in. It's kind of flipped. Those things are now being ranked near the top, the way the offenses are, and way that the college game, high school, college game have come into the NFL.
I think that's an excellent point. Yeah, great answer. Excellent point, Erik. And dude, the entire NFL evaluation, there have been so many anomalies that have just struck gold in the NFL that evaluators are starting to look at the NFL game so differently. And that's why old heads haven't really adapted as much. And I think a lot of Giant fans can understand the subtle shot that I am taking at a former Giants general manager. Maybe not so subtle shot.